Victor Frankl, the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, said, quote, "Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response." Welcome to the Ryan Watts Life Coaching Podcast. We're unlocking your highest potential. I'm your host, Ryan Watts, and each week we'll dive into strategies, mindsets, and structures that drive personal and professional success. Whether you're striving for personal growth, professional success, or both, this podcast is your go-to resource for actionable insights and inspiration. So, get ready to unlock your full potential and create a life you love. Let's go. Today on the show, let's explore the idea that there's only one true relationship, the relationship with ourselves. All of the relationships are an exploration of this one relationship. Now, this idea that there's only one true relationship, this relationship with ourselves, is an idea that has emerged through my own coaching exploration and coaching other folks as well. Now, you might point out there is an inherent contradiction in this idea. The idea that there is one true relationship seems to contradict the part of the statement that says all of the relationships, right? This is a fair argument, but we'll put a pin in it for now. Now, Victor Frankl, the renowned psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, said, quote, "Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom." Now, what I believe Frankl was talking about here was a great tool of managing this relationship with ourselves. You can call it mindfulness or awareness, whatever it is. The idea has a lot of power in it, and it gives us power over, ultimately, how we relate to the world. The voice in our head that is telling us we're no good, we're lazy, or not attractive enough, or whatever the issue that your particular voice brings up, is evidence of how this relationship with ourselves frequently goes. Now, much of what coaching does is help us reprogram and learn to control what that voice is saying to us. Now, it's very clear to me that this relationship extends to all of our other relationships. Not just those with people, but with ideas such as money or philosophies or success. If your relationship with yourself is one where you don't believe you deserve to have a lot of money, then you're going to often see that belief manifest in ways in which you're unsuccessful at getting a lot of money. And whatever that looks like for you, it could be impulse spending, buying things to fill some sort of emotional void. You might avoid creating a budget, planning for retirement, or just asking for financial advice. And this perpetuates the cycle of financial instability. You might not negotiate to optimize your income, or you may believe that certain jobs are above your ability, or use such barriers as generic qualifications to prevent you from seeking a dream certain job you might want. Now, you may not see yourself as having the ability to hold a position at a certain level, and therefore you don't ever even conceive of it. Today, we're going to dive a bit deeper into this idea that we are really only able to manage this one relationship, and that's the one with ourselves. So let's dive in. Now, we're going to come at this from three different lenses. First, the lens of self-reflection and projection. Second, authenticity and genuine connections. And third, self-love and empathy. Now, as you may have noticed, each of these spans the relationship with yourself and tells us how that extends to our external world. Now, it's my hope that you'll be able to draw a conclusion here that the relationship piece with yourself extends and impacts your experience with the world at large. So let's begin with self-reflection. When we self-reflect, we're diving into examining our thoughts, emotions, and actions. And when one of these experiences, thoughts, emotions, or action comes up, we can ask ourselves, what about this leads me to this thought, this emotion, or this action? Or another way to put it, what triggered this reaction? Now, if we can create that space that Frankl talked about between stimulus and response, there's a lot for us here to discover. So let me try to illustrate this with a little story. So let's say you're successful, and despite your professional accomplishments, you feel dissatisfied and unfulfilled in your personal life. Your relationships, both at work and in your personal life, are filled with conflicts, misunderstandings. At one point, you have a pretty bad argument with one of your friends, and you decide to take a step back and reflect. You consider your thoughts and emotions, attempting to understand just what's really going on here. And so you start to notice patterns in your behavior. You note that you often feel insecure about your worth and competence, despite your professional success. And so you become overly defensive and really quick to anger whenever you're criticized. This is the case even when it's not intended to be offensive. But you continue to consider your feelings of anger and defensiveness, and you remember instances from your childhood when you felt criticized by your parents or your teachers. Now, these memories are painful, but you learned a bit more about why you react so strongly to perceived criticism. Now, you might start to see that your reaction is more about you than them. And you start recognizing how you projected insecurities onto others. And you realize that you often accuse colleagues of being overly critical, when in reality, you're projecting your own criticism onto them. This revelation can be humbling, but it can also be enlightening. So you put this intel to work, and when you find yourself being self-critical, you pause and you replace those thoughts with more compassionate ones. Now, at this point, you're making strides in improving this relationship with yourself. And you can see how this extends to your relationship with others. You might confront your conversations with colleagues and friends with more empathy and be less defensive. You listen more and react less. When disagreements arise, you take a moment to reflect on your feelings before you respond. And this cycle continues, deepening awareness and bringing that awareness to the space between stimulus and response. In simpler terms, you're gaining control over yourself, your thoughts, feelings, and your actions. This can really be transformative, understanding that when you realize your response to others is often a reflection of what's happening inside you, this really reflects the relationship that you have with yourself. It gets even more profound when you realize that others are reacting to you just the same. It's more about them than it is you. Now, introspection is defined as the means by which we examine our thoughts, feelings, actions, and motivations. The definition of projection is a psychological defense mechanism where we attribute our own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, or impulses to others. Now, projection likely evolved as a way to enhance social cohesion. It's kind of a psychological defense mechanism, a way for us to understand and enhance social perception, if you will. And it also enhances social standing. While the evolutionary roots of projection, they might have helped early humans navigate these complex social environments and also manage stress, these mechanisms can create challenges for us in our modern settings. Now let's go a bit deeper. Let's go one level down. Let's discuss the relationship with yourself in terms of authenticity and genuine connection. When we're being authentic, we are acting in a way that aligns with our own personality, our own values, and our spirit. And regardless of any pressures externally, this involves aligning our actions with beliefs and being honest with ourselves and being honest with others. Now, if, for example, you've ever had a felt sense of emptiness in your relationship, this might really connect with you. If you ever felt that your connections were superficial or lacked true depth, that you had to change your personality to fit in, this is evidence for this lack of authenticity in your relationship with yourself. So starting from here, you may want to feel genuinely connected to others. It may seem to make sense in this spot, but it will require you to be authentic with yourself. And this is not an easy transition to make. But if you've ever laughed at jokes that weren't funny or went along with something even minor that you really didn't want to do, this is what I'm talking about. And you may discover a fear of rejection driving your inauthenticity. Awareness is not enough, is the first step to making a change. So you might decide to share more of your true self, You chat with a friend, and instead of making small talk, you open up about this feeling of inadequacy and fear that you've been sort of grappling with. Your friend might open up with their struggles with authenticity, and you can see how this builds a genuine connection. You're related, connected over this challenge. So you begin voicing your true opinions during meetings, even when they differ from the majority. You also start dedicating time to your passions. You might even share what you like about yourself. Now, many of us have trouble accepting compliments. It can feel strange to accept a compliment in social situations. Our culture doesn't look kindly on those who are too self-assured, whether it's due to self-confidence or arrogance. But if someone compliments you and you happen to agree with them, agree, right? Not out of arrogance or as an act of self-defense, but as an act of personal affirmation and confidence. At first, people will find it a bit shocking, sure. But when they hear the authenticity and the expression of self-love, they'll emulate you as well as admire you. So if someone were to say to you, wow, you're a really good singer, you might say, I am a good singer and I love to sing. Thank you. No arrogance, just a verbal expression of self-love. What would that look like for you? You'll come to realize that genuine connection requires you to be present and listen actively. You'll need to truly hear and understand others instead of planning your responses while they're speaking. Now, we call this active listening. It essentially means do nothing while you're listening except for listen. You'll find this to be quite magical. The more authentic you are in relationships with yourself, the more space is created for you to be genuinely interested in others and their experience. You'll find your relationships, they just feel more meaningful and fulfilling and experience a newfound sense of inner peace, right? And this all is caused by enhancing this relationship with yourself. Now, finally, let's look at self-love and empathy and how they support this idea that there's just one relationship that we need to manage. Self-love and empathy not only resource our relationship with ourselves, but they fundamentally shape and enrich our interactions with others. Here's how they support this idea. Self-love, as cheesy as the phrase sounds, is the foundation of a healthy relationship with ourselves. It involves accepting and appreciating oneself, acknowledging one's worth, and treating oneself with kindness and respect. We're able to recognize our intrinsic value, independent of any kind of validation externally. When we truly love and value ourselves, we're less reliant on others for this sense of worth. And this internal validation reinforces the idea that our most important relationship is the one with ourselves. By continuously working on self-love, we build resilience against external judgments and criticisms. We become more stable and secure in our identity and who we are, which strengthens our internal relationship, right? That relationship with ourselves. We begin to welcome feedback and learn to distill the data for purposes of self-discovery. So, said differently, self-love supports a growth mindset. And this is a necessity for personal development and mental health, as well as well-being. Self-love empowers us to set healthy boundaries. We make it a priority to protect our emotional, mental, and physical space, as well as well-being. This self-protection is a direct result of the care we provide for ourselves. When we love ourselves, we respect our own needs and limits, and this respect naturally extends to our interaction with others. It creates mutual respect and understanding, common ground in our relationships. I've said this to many clients. People don't know you by what you say. They know you by the boundaries that you set for yourself. As humans, we're very intuitive with this. Now, next, self-love encourages us to embrace our true selves. And this means our strengths as well as our weaknesses. And this acceptance allows us to be authentic in our relationships as we no longer feel the need to hide or alter our true identity. We're completely comfortable with who we are and willing to be open and vulnerable with others. Treating ourselves compassionately and with kindness, especially during the most difficult times, it reinforces the idea that the primary source of comfort and support really should come from us. It comes from within. And there's a responsibility that we have to ourselves to pick up the duty of self-love. But if that doesn't move you, then do it for those around you. It's going to really enhance your relationship. You can come to the importance of doing it for yourself and your own resourcing later. That's a perfectly good path to take with this. Now, where our self-love connects to our external work is called empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand and share feelings, the feelings of others. And it plays a super important role in our interactions by fostering connection and compassion. And here's how empathy supports the concept of the core relationship with ourselves. We begin with self-empathy, which this is recognizing and understanding our own emotions. And this self-awareness and self-acknowledgement is fundamental to building a strong relationship with ourselves. By emphasizing our own experiences, we can better navigate our emotions and respond to needs and resourcing. Self-empathy leads to self-compassion. We treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a dear friend. And this practice reinforces the importance of our internal relationship. Now, our capacity for empathy towards others often mirrors our own. When we understand and accept our own emotions, we're better prepared to empathize with others. The interplay here points to our ability to connect with others is deeply rooted in our internal relationship with ourselves. Now, empathy creates genuine connections because it allows us to really understand and resonate with others' experiences. Our connections are more authentic and meaningful when they stem from a place of self-understanding and self-empathy. Empathy allows us to support and nurture others while being open to receiving their support. We've got the self-love thing covered, right? So we'll accept the support. This reciprocal care, we might call it, enhances our relationship. But it's rooted in our capacity to care for ourselves first. A well-nurtured self is better able to engage in nurturing others. Now, I've often said a paradox that many of us have trouble wrapping our heads around is the fact that if we take care of our needs first and show up fully resourced, we find our relationship, our work, and our lives really have been asking for us to do this the whole time. And we find them transformed when we show up fully resourced and fully taking care of our own needs. Empathy helps balance the give and take in relationships without it becoming transactional. And by valuing ourselves, we ensure that we're not overextending or neglecting our own needs while caring for others. We're simply doing what we feel compelled to do, inspired by our own self-love. Now, how do you integrate self-love and empathy? Well, we've established that really self-love is a prerequisite for empathy. True empathy for others requires this baseline, this foundation. So without loving and accepting ourselves, our attempts at empathy can be superficial or even codependent, looking for validation rather than just a genuine understanding. Practicing empathy towards others can enhance our self-love. Witnessing the impact of our compassion on others can reinforce our sense of worth and kindness. And this creates kind of a positive feedback loop. And this is key. We're all in loops no matter what we do. Some negative, some positive. But the takeaway here is that this work allows us to begin to dispel and disassemble these negative beliefs one at a time. And we're replacing them with positive loops. And this is one way to do this. When we practice self-empathy regularly and intentionally share this with others, we receive as much, if not more, as we give. So, what does this look like in practice? Well, let's say you wake up one morning feeling a little off. The sunlight streaming through your curtains doesn't seem as bright as usual. There's this just nagging, tugging feeling pulling you down. Now, you've always heard people talk about self-love, but it's never felt like anything more than a cliche to you. But you're going to try something new today, so you start small. And each morning, from here on, you look in the mirror and you say something nice to yourself. You might say, wow, you look great today, or today's going to be an awesome day, right? These are called affirmations. And these are something that I have trouble doing regularly, but they're powerful, right? You hear yourself say something. And you might mutter this awkwardly, but it feels weird at first. But keep at it. And then after a while, you notice changes. Your shoulders relax and Your smile is not as forced. You begin to feel a bit lighter. Who doesn't like to feel light? And as if you're shedding layers of skin, molting self-criticism, you begin to get more comfortable with these affirmations, and something interesting happens. You notice your interactions with others, they start to change. One afternoon, maybe you're in a public place, and you see a woman crying, sitting on a bench. Normally, you'd kind of hesitate. That's not my business. Just keep moving on. But you'd be unsure what to do if you did approach the situation. But today you feel just a pull to reach out. So you say, "Hey, are you okay?" And she looks up sort of surprised and says, "I've just had a really bad day." And you nod and you listen without interrupting. And you realize that the kindness you've been showing yourself is kind of spilling over here. You don't need to solve her problems. Just being there is enough. Your own journey with self-compassion has made you more attuned to other struggles. And you learn that there's inherent value in just your simple presence. Nothing more than your presence is really required. Now, over the next few weeks, you keep consistently working on this self-love practice. And you start doing things you enjoy without guilt. Reading, jogging, or just watching the sunset. These moments of self-care, of self-love, make you feel more at ease with yourself and unexpectedly more patient with others. Now, at work, a colleague shares their stress about a project deadline coming up. And instead of getting caught up in their anxiety, you just listen and you offer some words of encouragement. Now, your own steadying practice may have made you just calmer in your presence. But people start to notice. And you realize that every positive interaction you've had recently stems from the same source. And this is the care that you were giving yourself. By learning to appreciate your own worth, you become more open to appreciating others. You understand now that the most important relationship you have is with yourself. And this inner foundation supports all your other connections, right? Your self-love has become a quiet strength, allowing you to form deeper and more meaningful relationships. You begin to feel a sense of calm you haven't felt in a long time. You discover that the key to connecting with the world lies within. So by taking care of yourself, you've unlocked the ability to genuinely connect with others, turning every encounter into moments of empathy and understanding. And in that simple realization, you find a deeper sense of belonging, as if you were representative of something larger than yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, there's only one relationship, and that is the one with yourself. It shows up in everything we do: our thoughts, feelings, actions, our performance, our relationships, and the overarching meaning of our lives. So what could you do? What could you transform by transforming the relationship with yourself? Thank you for listening to the Ryan Watts Life Coaching Podcast. You can find us online at ryanwattslifecoaching.com. Get your free Success IQ Emotional Intelligence Assessment at ryanwattslifecoaching.com/success IQ.